The Hail Varsity Radio Saturday morning show. Strap yourselves in. Here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt.
Y'all don't even know he was a virgin until he's 28, and now, roll tide.
And Mark Kraynak.
Time has come for someone to put his foot down. And that foot is me.
Welcome to it, the weekend edition. Back with you, it's Hail Varsity. Chris Schmidt, Mark Kraynak, Elijah Herbel. And we said 7:45, allegedly, yesterday.
We're trying. We're trying,
Guys, Put both cards on the table. I absolutely racked out at 9 p.m. last night. No horrible substances in me. Little dinner with the wife, some chicken wings. She had a wrap, and I was unconscious. I didn't even hear all three of my alarms. So I hustled to the kitchen island, and I am at the mercy and the apology of the viewers, and of course my two partners here, Mark Kraynak and Elijah Herbel.
Way to be audience-centric, though. Good way to be audience-centric and apologize to them first, not us, the ones who have been with you from the get-go, bro. You know? Yeah, it's fun.
Kraynak, how we doing?
Doing okay, man. A little better. Got some sound medical advice and treatment since last week. I watched a little bit of last week's. I barely remember that show. I'm not kidding.
It's all right.
I was on like
because you had
hours sleep.
Right, you had the neck injury.
Oh, what do you mean had? I still have it, but it's better.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a pinched nerve.
Pinched nerve. Ouch.
Yeah.
We going to the massage spot or the chiropractor?
We're doing chiro quite often. We're doing a nice combination of heat and ice, alternating depending on the time of day. I've heard that's a good thing. You know, you don't want to do heat at night. You do ice at night. Apparently. I'm going with it. And then, the Aleve. Speaking of which, I should take one of those. I have not taken one yet this morning. So you're doing that. You got the electric stim stuff at chiro. Icy hot. I think we went over that. Icy hot last week. Didn't we go over that? Like wash hands before going to the bathroom after the icy hot? Okay.
There's a warning specifically on the label to keep it away from any and all
children.
Yeah. Or future children. Peter Griffin would say muscle children. Hey, come on.
Wow.
That's what he
Elijah. Right. Elijah, we're going to be best friends tonight because you're getting the Crawford fight, correct?
Well, let's lay it out for you here. So Mark discussed the fact that he doesn't remember the show last week very much because of the sleep schedule. And as I go back and I listen to our Big Ten Media Days coverage, Schmitty, there's been some moments where I'm like, man, I forgot about this completely just because, the grind of media days and all that. So I was expecting myself to be able to sleep in this morning, recoup some of that sleep lost during Big Ten Media Days. Instead, my body is now on a very specific schedule. About 5:15 this morning, my body woke me up and said, all right, Elijah, you're awake. Find something to do. So I seasoned up some beef short ribs. They're dry brining at home, getting them ready to throw on the smoker. As for the Crawford fight, I've been texting with some friends. They're all interested in the UFC fights tonight. So those are going to be on the TV. The question is, do we go with a 2 TV setup and watch both at the same time? We got Poirier versus Dustin Gaethje in UFC tonight, along with Pereira and Jan Blachowicz. It's going to be a good night.
Did you just go Spanish accent for one word on us there? I love that.
He did. Really good.
You got to.
Said, we got Pereira.
It's how you pronounce his name. Thank you very much.
Elijah.
No, but I think the two TV setup might be in effect tonight. We'll see. All I know is the beef short ribs are going to be fantastic. I got a whole chicken I'm going to be smoking up as well. Going to do the mashed potatoes on the side. Use chicken sandwiches, the beef short ribs, mashed potatoes, maybe a little gravy on top of it all. Should be fantastic.
Jeez, this guy.
I may even watch Ultimate Fighting at Elijah's. I will bring money and chip in the pot, and I will be well fed.
I'll clean the house.
Yeah, that's the thing, man. Tonight, look, $84, right?
Yeah,
$84. Now, do you have to be a Showtime subscriber to get it as well? I don't think you.
I don't think you.
I think you just get it.
I think
Showtime's like, no, we'll let you in for $84.
I think you have to have an account, but that doesn't mean you have to be subscribed.
Okay, so that is super interesting because, dude, that's worse than SpectraVision at a hotel. I mean, that's a lot. We're talking a lot of money here, and it's like, Yeah, and when you got the kids at the time, it's God, that's a pretty penny to fork over. But you can't take your kids to, some drunken sports bar and grill past 10 p.m. for a fight specifically, right? Because that's when stuff gets a little rowdy.
No minors allowed after 9 p.m. Kraynak is what the signs usually say.
Yeah, well, you could usually get away with it at places like sports bar and grill type places,
sure,
right?
More family friendly ones.
Yeah, but
if Elijah's full, Kraynak, what are you doing?
Let's talk, bro.
Right.
Let's talk about that a little bit. Why have I said bro twice today?
It's all right. Like you're in pain still. Busy week. We appreciate everybody checking in on us for Big Ten Media Days. We are very thankful with Nebraska and their scheduling. They were awesome. They were so good. The Nebraska media this week with contact and then the ability to sit down and check in with the three players that went. Sims was a lot of fun. Reimer, of course, and Ethan Piper, just good dudes and fun to talk to them about their experiences and season. Trev Alberts was amazing, and big thanks to Coach Matt Rule. It was really fun to sit down and talk with him for a few minutes and class act. We transitioned from media days to tough decisions, guys. And the news that dropped yesterday at Elijah Herbel, you were all over it. Bravo for being able to see that email and then bring it onto the show and then follow up with the incident report you tweeted out last night at Herbal Essence for Elijah. And tough decision, really the first misstep, and this isn't on Rule, but the first misstep of some drama with Nebraska football, and we're all used to it at some point in the offseason the last few years. Nebraska's been their own drama factory. Well, you had Bob Wager, who we all kind of liked. We all liked Coach Beckton as well as his tight ends performed from the previous staff. But you're like, okay, Rule's bringing in Wager, high school coach, super accomplished, a school record of high school coaching wins, over 200, and he is prominent in the Texas high school scene. Rule loves to go find high school coaches, promote, and you look back to Coach Osborne with Dan Young, Milt Tenneber, Frank Solich, just to name three that were legendary. Those guys all made the jump from Nebraska high school to the University of Nebraska. So I get going and finding a guy and bringing him in. You have the situation with Wager, and you have the resignation yesterday, and it's pretty tough for the tight end room. Not that the guy they tapped can't be really good and does not have Arizona State or SMU on his resume, but man, just a really unfortunate set of circumstances. Specifically, when you look at the incident report, you've got a guy who's an example as a coach on a staff, and you can't be doing that. And the timing of this time of year, just is really a tough look.
And just to reset, let's reset everything that happened because it's fairly new. Like it happened kind of after the general news cycle and all that. So if you weren't glued to your phone last night, but it's Bob Wager, the tight ends coach, blows a .15. Is that what he blew?
0.5.
Picked up 2 a.m.
We don't know the exact number, but 0.15 plus.
Yeah, 0.15 plus. So that qualifies as DUI, which is different than DWI, I guess. And not only in acronym spelling, but in alcohol content. So over a 0.15 plus an open container, 2 a.m. on a Wednesday, right? And these guys are moving into the dorms Monday, right? They're moving into the dorms.
They're moving in Sunday from 9 to 11:30.
There you go. Yeah, so they're moving into the dorms tomorrow for 2 weeks to open up camp. Like this is how close you are to getting things cracking. So, aside from Matt Rule and Reimer and Piper and Jeff Sims going to Big Ten Media Days, I mean, it's like batten down the hatches time for the coaches, right? This is get your stuff together. Like camp is coming. Like you better have your stuff on point as you open up a camp and get ready to wrangle 120 dudes. Like it's not going to be easy at all. And it's your first time doing it. It's so I'm a little surprised at how quickly he was dismissed. I'm not surprised that he was dismissed. You can't do things like that, as you mentioned, Chris. But a lot of times when those things happen, as we saw with Mickey Joseph, when you get in some sort of trouble, it's like you get put on administrative leave. We will conduct a full review to see, right? But this was just boom, nope, out, which does make me wonder. Was there something else there where this was almost like this just kind of tipped it over the scales for Rule and crew? I'm only saying that. Now, it could have been just a standard rule. Any of you guys are ever pulled over and busted for DUI, you're out, period.
Don't embarrass yourselves. Don't embarrass the program. Don't embarrass me. Don't embarrass the football.
That could have been a thing.
Yeah.
But is there more that, like, it was pretty swift, especially on the doorstep. And how about the fact the guy that's replacing him? Okay. Like, how fortunate are you? His name is Josh Martin. Okay. He was brought on as a quality control analyst or
for
something.
He's a special teams analyst.
Special teams analyst. He was the tight ends coach for SMU for 4 years.
I know.
Right? So this isn't some QA guy that's a lot of the QA guys are either super young and inexperienced, or they're 50s, 60s, kind of in the twilight of their career, getting a nice cush job where they don't have as many recruiting duties, but they can still be involved. Here's a guy that is he's younger. I think he played until like 2009 or 2010. So he's not an older guy. He's been a Division I tight ends coach, and he's just chilling on your bench. So Wager gets run, and then Rule's able to just promote a guy who's clearly qualified. Like, he could have hired him instead of Wager. Like, it was almost like those two could have been reversed to begin with. So that's a pretty fortunate set of circumstances for the tight end room, for Rule, and for the whole operation.
I think the detail, the word meticulous, when putting this staff together, not only the guys that get to coach with you, but also the analysts, support staff, the football roll call is like an NFL front office. I mean, they have support personnel. You have to in this current era of portal, right, and NIL and roster build and roster construction and free agency. You've got to have all hands on deck, and you got to have a lot of hands. They do. But with Wager, you just wonder. I mean, his last 17 years, the guy's 140, 364, and 1. And then you transition to college
as a high school coach in Texas.
As the man in his area as a high school coach.
Big class high school Texas, right?
Yeah,
like
you go from your own, and I was saying this yesterday, you go from being the king of your own little kingdom to, and I'm not saying he couldn't take it or it didn't mess with him. I'm just throwing stuff against the wall as to how you'd feel about that. Yeah, you want to go coach major college football. Yeah, you get a shot finally after 26 years at Division I, or you thought this was the right fit. This is the guy who coached Myles Garrett, for God's sake. Okay.
Yeah. In high school.
And in high school. And it didn't work out. And yeah, this is your warning.
And I would say,
could you have suspended him? Absolutely. But no, you screw up, you embarrass us, make a poor decision. You're supposed to be leading young men. We're gonna expect your resignation. That happened, and it's now highlighted, fellas, for the rest of the staff or anybody else that works for Coach Rule.
And I think this is about sending a message. I mean, as you said, highlighting this for the other people on the staff. It's the first time that we've seen, at least publicly, somebody screw up big time as a member of Nebraska, whether it be on the coaching staff or a member of the roster, since Rule has taken charge. And I don't think this is about anything to do with his on-field performance, his coaching performance, his job duties. You're promoting a guy who has never done, as Schmidt said, major college football from the high school level up. Matt Rule's expecting that adjustment period for a guy like that to say, you know what, it's probably going to take you some time to get your feet under you. We see the upside with you. We see your potential. We think you're a great coach. We're going to help you along and hold your hand in that process as we take a chance on you because we think you can be really good at this. And then it's almost a slap in the face to come back and make a mistake like this and say, hey, we trusted you as a leader of men. We trusted your potential. And now you're going to sit here and set a poor example. It's about sending a message to the people within your building to say, hey, at Nebraska, we don't accept people screwing up this big. There's a lot of focus on this program. There's a lot of pressure around this program. We took that chance on you. And if you're going to take that and screw up, we don't want you around here because you need to understand the expectations and the pressure that come at a place like Nebraska. And that goes for players and coaches, but I think it's especially so for your coaches that are being leaders of men age 18 to 22. It's really important, especially when you look at the climate of college football right now, to set a good example for those kids and set what being a man means for those kids. And if you're going to screw up like that, it's hard to go back into that room leading your men and say, you know what, I'm still an example you can follow. It's about sending a message to the people that you're going to have in the program, not right now, but also down the line as well. Personally, that's my take on this whole situation.
It's no, absolutely. It's not okay. We need you to resign. And moving forward, these are the expectations. Now, listen, I'm not on a high horse or soapbox with the judgmental thing. It's against the law. Law was broken. I do feel for Wager and his family because, I mean, I like the guy, and we all know somebody or may have somebody in our family that made a misstep with a DUI as well. So I'm not just throwing rocks in a glass house here either.
Yeah.
I want to make that clear. We welcome in Brandon Vogel this morning. Hail Varsity in his football office. Vogues, we're deep into the Wager discussion point. Thank you for making time and joining us. Want to get your reaction and take on this, and then we'll get into Coach Rule and Nebraska's camp is underway tomorrow already. How are you, bud?
I'm doing well, thanks. As far as reaction to yesterday's news, not much more than I think just kind of sadness. Like, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know Coach Wager personally, but obviously made a mistake, which we've all done to varying degrees and in various ways. And, you know, who knows, maybe there's a policy that's in place amongst those coaches already. But even if there's not, like, at this kind of crucial juncture, I mean, Matt Rule has talked all offseason about trying to set the standard. You're trying to set expectations for the team, and coaches are part of the team. So I think as unfortunate as it is, you know, with his story, and obviously, you know, it was his choice that kind of put him there. But a high school guy kind of getting his crack at this, you know, it stinks, for lack of a better term, for everyone involved.
Yeah, and yeah, it just tells me that there's a couple of things going on there. So personally, on a human level with Wager, think about the hours that football coaches keep. Right, those guys got to get up, 4, like no later than 4 a.m. probably. Right, he's out at 2 a.m. with an open container, double the legal limit on a Wednesday. You know, something's happening there, and that sucks for him, and you hope that he gets something figured out. You know, I don't know where to situate, but it's a big adjustment where he was coming from, being the top dog as a high school guy to being somebody as part of a really clinical operation, big time college football. So something's happening there, and you hope he's okay from that standpoint. But then organizationally, Brandon, we were talking about it. It's just like, with how swift the decision was made, and maybe this is just how it's going to be with Rule. We don't really know because nothing's really happened under his watch yet. With how swiftly the decision was made, I can't help but think there was maybe other things happening, like in terms of like his performance or his recruiting or him getting to work on time or something, to where it was just No, he's out. He's out. It wasn't administrative leave and we'll review and conduct an investigation and get him the helping. It was, he's gone. And you got, here's the real thing though, Brandon, is how the hell do you have the foresight or the just luck to have a Division I tight end just chilling on your coaching staff in one of the quality support roles who, if you think about a couple months ago or when Rule first got hired, if you had announced Josh Martin as your tight ends coach and Wager as a non-coaching assistant, you would have been like, yeah, that makes total sense. Nebraska's pretty fortunate considering the timing to have that guy on their bench.
Yeah, they are. It makes you wonder if, Josh Martin was a guy that they considered for. I mean, he certainly has the resume to be a full-time position coach. And, when you're out there building a new staff, you kind of reach out to everybody, I think, that you have an interest in. And as people take jobs or don't take jobs, it can kind of slot things in. And he's younger. He has good experience, but is still fairly early on in his coaching career. He's another Texas guy. His dad is the president of the Texas High School Football Coaches Association, and is also a Texas high school football coaching legend. Played at Tarleton, which is a pretty strong FCS program in Texas. So he offers you a lot of the same connections. He's obviously, I think this is the big thing too. He's recruited before as a full-time position coach at Arizona State and SMU. So as far as all things on that front go, should be pretty seamless, about as seamless as you could possibly hope for in this situation. And, I really think in terms of how quickly this went from, early Wednesday morning to Friday, you got a new tight ends coach. I really think the timing of it had to play a big role. Like you're starting fall camp in a couple of days. And it just goes back to, it's kind of a crucial time for a new coaching staff trying to rebuild a strong program.
Brendan Vogel's joining us, Hail Varsity Weekend Edition. And Vogue's going to go from Wager to Nebraska as they were featured along with everyone else in the Big Ten. Really good time at media days and lots of information from Matt Rule, specifically the fear factor discussion point. And Elijah and I were spending time yesterday contrasting just how you walk into the room. And you've got the hope and want to of Rule with, Nebraska needs to be feared again. That was his talking point on the big stage. That was his talking point on the sidebar. And he's like, you want to be feared. You want to be a really dynamite football team, but we're not there yet. And then you contrast it to 5 years ago with Frosty's You Better Get Us Now. And it's really interesting to see how the reaction.
In Frost's defense, he didn't put a timeline on it. Oh no, he did. He said next year, didn't he?
Yeah, you better get us now because we'll be good, next year.
Because next year, year two is where it's going to take off. Damn it.
So
you should have left that more open.
I don't bring that up to elbow Frosty this morning. It's just there's a lot of Big Ten folks there that are covering their team, but they also said, dude, A, it'd be really cool if Nebraska got good again. B, we like this guy and think it can happen just based on his ability to communicate. Didn't even get into his past run at two tough programs.
Yeah, that was certainly, I think, the big takeaway from all of the time at Big Ten Media Days. It was a good quote. I think it was an accurate quote. And it kind of sent me back, so we can look at Nebraska's entire time in the Big Ten, and whether you want to call it fear, I think at this point Nebraska would just take respect, and if you can get the respect, then you can build towards being feared. But I don't know. Do you guys feel like Nebraska ever really had that in the Big Ten? So the height was, the end of the Pelini era, but they were the new guy, right? Mm-hmm. They came in 2011. And the Cleveland.com poll puts Nebraska number one. They're picked to win the conference in their first year, which doesn't really endear you probably to your conference mates right away. And then Bo had 3 more years after that, and made the decision. And the respect part of it is you can earn respect, I think, without being Ohio State. And obviously Nebraska wants to get to a point where you're Ohio State, but was Illinois a team that anybody looked forward to playing in 2022? No. And I mean, they were top 15, 7-1, I think, at one point. But Minnesota is, I don't think, a team that they're like, yeah, this is gonna be a fun week. Let's go play Minnesota. Whether they're, sitting at, say, 5-4 or they're 9-0. I mean, I think that's kind of what Rule was talking about there. And I think that's something you can do right away in year one. And, you mentioned, Schmidt, you didn't want to throw an elbow at Frost. Between the 2016 and 2017 season, my old neighbor, his brother was an assistant at USF. And he happened to be over visiting his brother, and I was over there, and I would hang out with them occasionally. And he was like, man, UCF's going to be a problem in 2017. He was like, they were not fun to play. Like, nobody in the league wanted to play them. So it was something that Frost and that staff had there, and it just didn't come to Nebraska. And I think some of that was, some of those comments we all remember, get us now. We're hoping the Big Ten has to adjust to us. Like, it's what you're after. You want to be a team, whatever your record is, that teams don't want to play, that they don't look forward to it. And if you can be that, then your record's probably going to follow.
And let's break that down a little bit and maybe talk about the qualities of what would yield a respected team. Like, what are those things, right? And we get a message in from Rick, who's watching on the stream right now. If we won the West this year, we would get respect. Yeah, that's fair. You would. But let's talk through this. What are those traits? What are those qualities? To me, it would look like you're sturdy and you're sound as your baseline. And that means you're probably not getting blown out, like at all, against anybody. You're a tough out, right? You're fouling off pitches. You are a tough out. That's one. And then two, this is really hard to say out loud, but it's just true. You're basically Iowa or Wisconsin. Like that's what you are, right?
That's okay.
You're sound. You're not. Your punter is booming at 50 yards. Your kicker is always getting touchbacks. Your return game is a threat. Your defense is salty. Your offense can run the ball. Like, it's just sound. It doesn't have to be prolific. It doesn't have to be fireworks and highlights. And so it just has to be sturdy, sound. Don't embarrass yourself in press conferences. So I was going to put Minnesota in there, but Fleck ruins it, right? You can't like, I think on the field, they have a fair degree of respect, but overall as a program, they're an eye roller, isn't that sort of what getting respect and being a respected team is about?
It is. And the persona of Fleck is tough. The on-field is very good. Yeah. Kraynak, you laid out a lot, Vogues. I think you've got to have some sort of superpower. And what I mean by that is, do you have a quarterback that can wear out a opposing defense? Think of Michigan State, Iowa, Wisconsin, how much they freaked out about Taylor Martinez. He was different. He was a game changer. Do you have an offensive line group that's as good as it gets in conference or amongst the best? Does your defense have a specialty that no one else? What can you bring that's different along with that consistency? To me, that having a specialty is going to also make you feared. And I wanted to just jump in on that, Kraynak, because you opened the door, and Vogues, go for it, Elijah, go for it. But, that's okay, too, to build up to having something or being different and better in an area, a given area, over somebody else in the opponent. That helps bring that fear into reality. Respect.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, there are probably two main components to it. On the field, I think physicality is always going to get you that. And you can be physical, you know, in the way that Penn State or an Ohio State is and still score 40 points a game. You can be more classically kind of physical of like in Iowa or Wisconsin. So I think that will always be part of it. It's like, yeah, we're going to feel this after we play these guys. And, you know, that was something people said about the great Nebraska teams for a long, long time. And I think to Mark's point of like soundness, I think there's a coaching component of this too, where, you know, when these staffs look at each other and you look at the opposing coaching staff, you're like, yeah, they're going to give us some things we haven't seen. They're going to be ready to kind of play the chess game with us, and they're going to match moves. And it's going to be hard. I would call it meticulous, you know, and that, includes all of those things like punting it inside of the 10 instead of giving touchbacks, field position, you know, all the kind of little like nickel and dime kind of detail driven stuff. I think a lot of that goes to coaching. And so if you've got a physical team, if that's all Nebraska is in 2022 or 2023, is they're physical and opposing coaches at the end of the year, like those guys were really well prepared. I think the respect will be there.
It's Brandon Vogel with us here, a weekend edition of Hail Varsity. And Brandon, I want you to look at the grander Big Ten as we kind of have our Big Ten Media Days hat on still just a little bit and talk about those teams that are feared in the Big Ten. I think Michigan's the easy answer. Everyone understands what Michigan is, that physicality and how talented they are. There is the fear there. Is Ohio State feared in your book? Is Penn State feared in your book? Who else is feared in the Big Ten? What level do you have to rise to, I guess, is kind of the question here, in order to become feared in the Big Ten?
I mean, I think it becomes tough. Like you can maybe do it for a year where say you're like the 5-7 team that you're like, you're feared, you're respected, but the expectation then becomes like, oh, you gotta show some more gains the following season. You can't, I mean, and this is, you know, when we look back at the previous era of Nebraska, this is the thing. You can't just sit there at 4-8, 5-7, and people can see a lot of promise. That was certainly the case after 2018's 4-8 season. But if you don't back that up, you know, eventually you just kind of become the 4-8 team, the 5-7 team. You know, Nebraska, in terms of respect, here's another one. Like they always fought back, they always battled back. But you know, that wasn't enough on its own, because you could also say, like, the book on Nebraska was just kind of like, stay between the lines, like wait, there's a gaffe coming somewhere sometime. So that kind of prevented that previous regime from getting there. So can you eliminate some of those things? So I think you got to be kind of a winning program or trending up to truly have that respect. So that lops off half the league roughly, but it's always kind of shifting. Like I said, I think Illinois out of nowhere was there a year ago. Ohio State's an interesting one because they have such a lead on everybody in the league in terms of talent that I think it can become easy to miss some of those things we're talking about, like physicality, like meticulousness amongst the coaches, because it's just like, but did you see Marvin Harrison Jr.? You know, when a guy can just do, and when they have guys that can just do that, it kind of casts a shadow, I think, on like the actual football job that the coaches at Ohio State do, but they're certainly feared based on that alone. You know, Penn State's kind of an interesting one. I think Michigan's definitely in that group. They've kind of done it in a classical style. Iowa's in that group. Penn State kind of floats a little bit for me. I think they have a chance to have a really good team this year. Are they better right now than Michigan or Ohio State? No, probably not. But they still might be one of the 10 best teams in the country. So where does that one go? I think Penn State is poised to be pretty tough defensively, and that goes a long way. I think a lot of this ends up being set by just how tough you are defensively.
Brandon Vogel is with us. I want to ask you about Penn State and get your thought with James Franklin. He's in year 10 now, which is just nuts to think about.
I feel old.
Yeah. Jeez.
Does he have to split with Ohio State, Michigan, this year and moving forward, because he was really the first one to take down Urban that magical year on the pump block, and away they went to the Rose Bowl. They were fun. Let's throw a 50-50 ball and hit it every time, right? Yeah. But with the Penn State fan base, I ask this. If they don't end up being better than number 3 in the new Big Ten, but still get to a playoff, are they going to be okay with that, the fan base, the alumni?
Well, I think the history of human behavior is that no one will ever be totally happy with just being in one spot. Like, I mean, Ohio State, you have to read between the lines a little bit, but there's hand wringing there. They lost two straight to Michigan, and Ryan Day, that win total, or that total number of losses is over 5 now, if you guys can believe that. So it's getting
loser.
It's getting serious in Columbus.
Yeah, they almost took down Georgia, for God's sake, last year.
Yep. I'm trying to remember Penn State's roster makeup. So let's say I think the key for them, I don't think they have to split with Ohio State or Michigan, but they have to look like they're in the league. They're the same league as them. So let's say you play both of them ultra tough. If you do that and you go 10-2, which is pretty likely.
Again?
Yeah. You go 10-2, you're going to end up in the top 10. And as you said, they would bring their quarterback back. Both the running backs are young. I'm not quite as sure defensively like what they would stand to lose going into 2024, but they would have, I think, a pretty good nucleus to be a top 10 preseason team in 2024 again. And then at that point, then you're talking about a 12-team playoff where, I think most years the Big Ten will get 2 teams in a 12-team playoff. And some years they'll get 3. So if you're Penn State, it's college football is so much about like just be in the hunt. And you wait for those seasons where, you get a punt block against Ohio State or something like that can flip those.
Yeah, man. And, Penn State too, they can capitalize on the recruiting trail. I mean, they have had some really supreme top shelf talent. I mean, Micah Parsons, Saquon Barkley, Jahan Dotson, I think is going to be he's a fast riser in the league too. I mean, these aren't just guys making rosters. These are
they got an O-line
now. Yeah, these are all pro level starters that are outstanding. Are you keeping your eye on, Brandon, though, the administrative setup at Penn State and just kind of quick backstory for those not familiar, but the athletic director at Penn State hired Matt Rule at Temple. They're good friends. Rule helped work channels to get him the job at Penn State. Rule is
played at Penn State.
Played at Penn State, walk-on from the general Northeast area. Are you keeping your eye on that sort of, I guess, the tenor and the vibe with Franklin? If they struggle, like what kind of comments are out there? I am. It just seems like if you keep your eye on that one.
If I were a Nebraska fan, I would be rooting for Penn State to win as many games that are not against Nebraska as they can. I mean, I don't think and I mean, I had that thought like shortly after Rule had his introductory press conference, and you start to take a look at the league and you realize James Franklin has been there for entering year 10 now. And it's a program that, is a top 10 all-time program. We know that the kind of like scale of what's acceptable there shifts. In a lot of ways, it's more successful, but not drastically so. I mean, I think, James Franklin's kind of where Bo Pelini was towards the end of his Nebraska tenure.
Yeah.
It's like you can't argue with the results, but it's just you're constantly gonna want to see like, well, what more can we do? And yeah, I mean, given Matt Rule's ties to that program, it's something that I think remains in the back of your mind for sure.
And I think if there's any team, though, that can benefit from a divisionless Big Ten moving forward, it could be Penn State getting out of that murderous East Division. So I think if you fire James Franklin at the end of this season, you're doing it far prematurely. And Brandon, I'm with you. I see the parallels between a potential Franklin firing, which is way down the road and crazy to say right now. It's just hypothetical time, but you can see the parallels between Pelini and Franklin, especially with how a divisionless Big Ten could set up for Franklin and Penn State.
Vogues, go ahead. I interrupted. Forgive me.
No, I didn't have much to add. I think that I just agree with Elijah on that. I do think they stand to be a pretty big winner from just from the move away from divisions, but also the move towards a bigger playoff. Like all of a sudden, the third place team in the East Division is not in the conversation for the playoff, but the third place team in the Big Ten without divisions absolutely is.
Before you go, Vogues, and I'm going to bring Gary Sharp in as well. Sharpie, good morning. Thanks for joining us. You're on mute, partner.
That's what I said. Good morning, boys.
Good to see you. So I'm going to ask Vogues.
We got to get Gary some radio experience. You know what I mean?
Well,
it's just new. It's new to him. It's different.
Yeah. I'm gonna ask Vogues this.
Away, man. Keep plugging away. You might get your break.
and Sharpie this, and this came in from her Dizzle. And what's the most interesting thing I heard at media days to me when Rule sat down with us, and Sharpie also had time with Matt Rule, an explanation of what he wanted to do with the quarterback run game. I liked that. The non-Nebraska interesting thing I heard, I'm coming out of the can, and there's Jim Harbaugh with his entourage and some national guy with his little digital recorders doing a kind of a culture interview, not about the football program, but Coach Harbaugh, what are you like? So it was a music question, and I kind of took my time drying my hands, and I listened in. And so, Coach Harbaugh, what do you like to listen to? What's on your playlist? There was a lot of food questions for sure with the main stage to all the football coaches.
Mm-hmm.
There was fashion for a lot of the players as well. They were hit up. Great stuff from Aaron Sorensen on that with Hail Varsity. And Harbaugh's like, I really love me some Hootie and the Blowfish, and I'm not kidding. And I think that gal Alanis Morissette, man, can she sing? So,
wow!
If you had those on the bingo card, that's the non-sports what most interesting thing I heard in Indy. So, I wanted to kind of kick off that question. That was pretty good.
It wasn't the lady asking Rule about the Wisconsin shooting.
I think
that was.
See that? I remember I was watching the newsroom, and we're all sitting around watching that interview, and we're all looking at each other like palms in the air. What the hell is this woman talking about?
Yeah, that was interesting, and he handled it well. Bless his heart. I mean, Rule handled himself pretty much perfectly.
There was the one guy. So the one guy asked Ryan Walters about a place in West Lafayette that serves peanut butter and jelly. Yeah, peanut butter and jelly hamburgers. And then he's the same guy that asked Rule about chili and cinnamon rolls. And, Rule said it was a life changer. He first had it when he went to the Bramers in Pierce on a recruiting visit.
Okay.
They made Ben Bramer's mom made them chili and cinnamon rolls.
Huh. And I bet you money her chili is way better than my wife's chili.
Okay.
Anywho.
We'll get it out on this really fast.
Jeez.
Really fast. Actually, I know Brandon's probably going to
Wife's sitting there like, it's 8:30 in the morning, and you're already giving me crap for not doing it well in the kitchen.
She's at work. There's no sledgehammer attack from behind coming today.
I need to go around the horn here real quick, and we'll get Brandon out on this. Chili and cinnamon rolls, are they eaten separately at the same time, or are you dipping your cinnamon roll in the chili?
I'm not dipping, but I will eat them together. Perfectly happy doing that. It's kind of a key part of, I think, my Nebraska upbringing. It was like the biggest day at the school cafeteria when it was chili and cinnamon roll day. So keeping that separate is fine for me. Separate but together, it works. I'm to backtrack. I'm shocked that Jim Harbaugh listens to music. I am. Like, I figured it was just like World War II podcasts, nonstop. ESPN a couple of years ago, I think, told every FBS coach, and I'll never forget this detail, of like their favorite artist. And there was a lot of Kenny Chesney, lot of Bruce Springsteen, stuff you'd kind of expect. Dave Clawson, favorite artist, Talking Heads.
Okay. Nice.
What's Hardball listen to? What's on his playlist?
That's so funny. World War II podcast. Vogel.
What would be on his? I bet you it's like Richard Marx, Kenny Loggins. He seems like kind of a trapped in that era guy, Well,
what did he say? Did you miss Chris's answer?
Yeah.
Chris has a couple of.
I know he had the what Alanis Morissette, but like
Hootie and Alanis, and I wanted to just pipe in and say,
Hootie.
Yeah, I wanted to pipe in and say, did you catch her? This is probably 5 years ago, but her live concert series with Howard Stern, because she would do an acoustic. She did an acoustic set, and I thought that was awesome. I totally get it.
How did he not say the Killers? Because that's like the most popular song in Ann Arbor. In the stadium when they play Mr. Brightside and the whole stadium sings.
Yeah.
Gray Woman 79 in the stream. Hardball loves Taylor Swift. This is certainly possible.
But who doesn't?
I was gonna say.
But Alanis Morissette.
That's everybody.
So
this guy.
Yeah, I could see that. He's like roaming the halls that Schimbeckler built, and he's like, when she go down on you in a
Hold on.
Like, oh God, there is Coach, that's not the line you want stuck in your head. Like, what are you doing? Come on.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, now that I've been forced to think about Dave Coulier again, I think I'll sign off, guys.
Man, nice, well played, Brandon.
Isn't it ironic? Don't you think?
Indeed.
Yes.
Have a good Saturday.
All right. So get a run for the door. Take care. Appreciate you, Brandon Vogel. Gary Sharp's with us.
Harbaugh just vibing. Hold on. Harbaugh vibing with Alanis Morissette, whose her whole thing was kind of like the scorned woman, And Harbaugh's like, I can relate. Like, let's go. That's on repeat. That's on repeat in my tape deck converter to CD player, like in the car. Listen to the Star Wars movie score only, says Moonbot. By the way, Moonbot earlier really had, I think, one of our best comments that we've had. You see that one?
Well,
you got to go. That one. No.
Okay.
No. I thought it was I Gotta Poop. Be right back.
No, it was the dog's got to go.
No, if you're hitting the can, you can take your phone in there. You can keep on watching. You don't have to leave us behind.
That's what I was going to suggest. Like, that's the whole thing about this weekend edition of the podcast and digital media now is that, like, your legs might fall asleep if you end up hanging out there too long and surfing, but you can take it with you.
That's truth. Well, you ought to know.
Yeah. Well,
just make sure that when you're done, your hands are clean.
Did you just dropped an Alanis Morissette line?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I hope when
you ought to know.
I hope when you're sitting there and scrolling, you don't have a hand in your pocket.
Yeah. And if you can't go, you just take that jagged little pill.
What's the other one doing? Playing a piano?
Sometimes you go head over feet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Man.
Let's do this whole interview with nothing but Alanis Morissette.
Okay, I can do that. Thank you.
Yeah. Gray Woman 79 again. I imagine most of us are on the can. Yeah. Hopefully not for the whole 2 hours.
Yeah.
Hopefully not for the whole 2 hours.
Well, it's reasons I drink.
Yeah.
Drink coffee.
Got him going. Sharpie, you want to get your thoughts on Nebraska?
Coffee very effective at getting you to the can.
It is.
Well,
Sorry.
yeah, her Dizzle's right. Make it stop. I want to go back to what we kicked off with, which was yesterday's 5:30 kind of wow news moment with Bob Wager. And Gary, as you've looked at his addition to the staff and now departure, thoughts on the hire and now the decision, and really just a tough moment for Wager, and Rule had to make a decision.
Yeah, it's.
And why didn't you guys call an Uber, Gary? And you should have taken the keys. And
we always say that, Mark, and then some people don't think that they're in better shape than they are. It's one of those things where don't embarrass yourself, don't embarrass the university. And if you do both of those things, then we got to have a conversation. And here's somebody who left a really good job in Arlington, Texas, to come to Nebraska. I'm wondering. I found it very curious, and not curious bad, that a release from the university was a statement from Bob Wager, not Matt Rule or Trev Alberts. It was a statement from the person that was impacted. Now, they left it open in their statement, and then you read the police report, and you're like, dang. But this was swift action by Matt Rule. And, maybe it pulls back the curtain a little bit on his discipline or what he sees as the standard for his football program, whether you're wearing a headset or a helmet. But to act quickly like this, I think that gives you a little inkling on how Matt Rule is going to run things. Again, 2 rules. Don't embarrass yourself. Don't embarrass the university. And if you do that, we got to have some speaks. It's unfortunate because he coaches a position that, is going to be a pretty vital position this year. And now there's somebody that is thrust into that role that has less experience than Bob Wager. But I hope things work out on the back end for him. It just will not work out at Nebraska. But it's a tough one. He left a really, really good job in Arlington, Texas to come here, but there are consequences. And yesterday we saw swift consequences.
Yeah, and he brought a couple guys from his high school that were lightly recruited, but good athletes, and the impact on those guys is obviously going to be something that they're going to have to work through too. And then, of course, Nebraska's able to backfill immediately with a guy who's probably actually more qualified on paper to do it. So that's not a horrible situation just from a pure coaching perspective. But Gary, as they move into the dorms tomorrow and then they get camp kicked off, do you think part of this too was we have to take swift action? Because look, we're talking about it right now. They knew it would cause a news cycle. You just have to get it out of the way and get it out of the way quickly. You can't start off fall camp with him indefinitely suspended. Is he coming back? Is he not? That right? Like, I think timing of this also played a factor. In addition to, there's probably some other things with Wager that they weren't too happy with. That I would think to move this quickly.
Well, I don't know if
there's probably more to it.
I don't know what's in the past. I think probably Matt Rule has a zero tolerance when it comes to the adults leading the kids, that we're going to set a standard as adults so that these kids follow that. And if us as adults step out of line, there's going to be consequences. I think you're noticing they want this camp to begin with no drama, no outside noise. They want to focus on the day-to-day. Because I don't know if you noticed this, Schmidt, in Indianapolis, whenever you'd ask Trev Alberts or Matt Rule about Arik Gilbert, if he's going to get his waiver, they immediately said, don't know, and they wanted to move on to the next question. Because that'll linger a little bit until the NCAA decides, what's going to happen with the Georgia-LSU transfer. So I think they want to eliminate all outside noise. Because this is an important camp. Focus on the guys that are here, that they get them going in the right direction so that 5 weeks from now, they're ready to play a football game. I think it's all part of Matt Rule's day by day. He was really, really big on that in Indianapolis, is that we're not looking down the road to year 3 or year 4. You guys might be looking ahead to Minnesota. We just got to focus on the day to day. And I thought that was encouraging because we've heard a lot of coaches do it. Now, he's got to back that up. But we've heard a lot of coaches do that here. But along the way, things get sped up when you're not winning at Nebraska, and they start to skip steps. Scott did that. When he started out on the losing streak in his career here, I thought he started to skip steps. And to get back to where Nebraska gets that respect and to be feared, you can't skip steps. If you're going to lean into the process, you got to follow the process. Even if you're Bo Pelini and people are like, oh, the process. Well, you know what? Bo, along the way, didn't skip many steps. Scott skipped steps because the timetable got shortened and he started to get squeezed. So I think Matt Rule, in studying, because he has done this, he has studied the past failures at Nebraska and the past successes, that he knows that it's got to be a day-by-day thing, that you just keep building and building and building and building. Because once you get there, his big thing, and something he talked about with us, is you don't go back. Once you take a step forward, you might take a half step back, but you never take one full step backwards. You inch along and you keep making strides and you don't fall way back again. So I think that's what he's looking at as he builds the program from the outside to the inside.
Gary, what does this move mean for the tight end room here this season? If we're going to focus on football, that tight end room's been emphasized plenty in Matt Rule's first 6 months on the job. I think they want it to be a strength, and that's kind of what the tight end position's been in football over the past decade or so. It gives defenses matchup nightmares, and Rule and company, it sounds like from what they've said, they want to emphasize that and utilize that in their offense. What does that mean for the tight end room here this season?
Well, I mean, it's a tight end room that has a lot of questions and a lot of young faces, but that is a room that will be determined how good they can be by the guys they're next to on the line of scrimmage, by their offensive coordinator. And a guy, Josh Martin being elevated, it's not like he's a stranger. So people have been around him. So, and he has previously coached at SMU and Arizona State. And, it's not like he's a guy that, okay, he has no experience. He has experience. So that helps him in this situation. But that room will still be determined by the guys in the room and the way they're utilizing this offense. I don't think it'll impact them that much, because it was addressed and quickly moved on. It's not lingering out there.
Gary Sharp with us. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was also going to say, just from a coaching perspective, too, you also have to wonder, and look, this may have been just a one-time incident with him. He screwed up and learned and never happened again and hadn't happened before. But chances are, you're out at 2 a.m. on a Wednesday when you're probably you probably should be up at 4 a.m. in the office kind of thing. You wonder how present and locked in he was to begin with. Right.
Yeah,
so
I don't know. He made a mistake. He's in a high profile job. He suffered the consequences. I hope that things work out on the back end for him. But if you're Nebraska, you got to move on.
Yeah.
Well, right. But my point being, though, now you have a coach who presumably isn't fighting those demons. Right. It might actually be a net positive for that room, to your original question, Elijah. Yeah. Like it, because now you have a situation where you have a guy who's actually more experienced coaching that position, has done it at the Division I level, and doesn't have this side stuff going on that you got to get addressed, right? So it could ultimately be a better thing.
Sharpie, want to talk a little bit on the term respect, the word respect. And we were going around with this, and what components, what traits make up that respect card for you in a football team?
How you look on game day, how you warm up, how you approach the game, that it's not a lot of WTF moments. I think it's also, coaches, if coaches on the opposing sideline see something that stands out, they will take note of it. Like you've heard in the past, and sometimes we think it's just a backhanded, slap, is, man, they look like they're well coached. I think that's a sign of respect. If Nebraska plays a team this year and, they beat Nebraska, but their coaches go, man, that's a good football team over there. They're headed in the right direction. They play hard. They look like they have been fundamentally coached up. They just are missing some pieces. I think that's how you start to get respect. The football looks good, and guys look like they know what they're doing. There are two things about this trip to Indianapolis. One, going back to a question you asked at the end of when Brandon was with us, was there something that Matt Rule said or another coach said that stood out? Matt Rule mentioning Isaiah Garcia Castaneda was kind of surprising to me, because I asked him, I said, give me a couple of guys that are going to stand out. And he said him and John Bullock. Garcia Castaneda, we kind of left for the scrap heap when he basically quit on the team last year because of, his lack of touches. But I also think, the part of the respect is they want people to look at Nebraska and go, man, that's a well-coached program that takes care of itself, that handles itself in the right way, and they're professionals. They don't shoot at the hip. They don't say things that are willy-nilly. They don't try and pick fights that they can't back up. They just go out and ball. And I think that's what Matt Rule wants to do. He just wants his guys to go out and ball. Okay? They're not going to win every game. They're not going to lose every game. But as long as you go out and you put a product on the field that everybody can be proud of, whether they are yourself, your coaches, your staff, your fans, your administrators, whatever, you're golden. Because look at what else Trev Alberts said this weekend. Here's another thing. Group interview with Nebraska media. Trev looked at people because people were, I don't know, as one young reporter tried to press Trev for the old Bill Moose. Hey, how many wins this year? And Trev turned it back because he's in our medium. He turned it back to the reporter and he said, he goes, I'm not gonna give you a win total, but I will ask you this. When you turn the tape on the last couple of years, did that look like good football?
Yeah.
I mean, so that's part of the respect.
Depends on what phase, right?
So that is part of the respect now, is when you turn on the tape, does it look like good football? Does it look like a team that is prepared Monday through Thursday to get to Saturday? Yeah. And that's a big part of starting to gain the respect.
And that comes down to details, and that also comes down to, look, if you want to be a respected team, and we brought up Iowa and Wisconsin earlier as kind of the comp, it doesn't mean that they're prolific in every phase of football or every kind of special team, but it means they're at least sound and they're at least a threat in all of it, right?
Yep.
And Iowa gets crap because they weren't any kind of threat offensively last year, but that was a bit of an aberration. Normally you could count on at least their run game. But if you think about Nebraska under Frost, how many phases of the game where they essentially waved the white flag and just were not a threat at all? I mean, think about punt returns alone. Like, you think that was respected in any way by anybody? Horrific. Yeah. Not a threat in any game ever. You're waving the white flag on the punt return game. Field goals were a huge issue for a long time. Pass protection has been god awful. I mean, those quarterbacks, you can say all you want about Casey Thompson and Adrian Martinez, but dudes were under siege the entire time under Frost. I mean, you're right. And just being competent in either of those areas, Frost still might be the coach. It's just, is that what you expect under Rule? Do you think that Nebraska will be at least competent in pretty much all the phases?
I do believe so. I expect penalties to be cut down. I expect guys to.
It's another one.
To not have a bunch of WTF moments, whether they're in headsets or helmets. I think they will look like a competent football team. Now, they've got some holes, and not everybody is saying, man, all of a sudden I'm drinking the Kool-Aid and they're going to go 12-0. But just I think this year also is about, from the fan perspective, is that when you wake up on Sunday morning, even after a loss, you can go, I see what's happening here. Okay?
Yeah.
I see that there's progress. I see guys are getting better. I also see that what Matt Rule is saying publicly, it is backed up by the actions on the field. And if you can get to that point, man, that's a big step, because that has been lacking for the last couple of years. What has been said hasn't been backed up on Saturday.
Gary Sharp is with us here, a weekend edition of Hail Varsity. And Gary, whenever you talk about that year one earning respect, backing up what you're saying with on-field performance, what does, or I guess a better way to phrase this, can Nebraska earn respect in a week one performance against Minnesota? It's going to be a game that a lot of teams in the Big Ten are going to be throwing on the film, seeing what Nebraska looks like as they look ahead to whenever they play Nebraska. That's the first time you get a real sense of what Nebraska under Rule looks like against a Big Ten opponent. Is there anything they can do in that performance that can earn respect from your Big Ten foes?
Yeah, look like when plays are being called, they're running the right play. Guys are in sync, especially in the offensive line, that there seems to be a plan. You know, the one thing I didn't like about Scott's play calling, whether it be Scott calling plays or Lubick or Whipple, is there were never complimentary plays.
Yes.
You know, there was nothing ever leading up to. You know, it was kind of a hodgepodge of a pick and choose. Mm-hmm. I think a sign on against Minnesota is you see a pattern. Okay, I can see why they're running this play, because down the road it's going to lead to this. And you see, instead of trying to go from 0 to 60 on the first play of the game, you're 0 to 60 through 60 minutes of football. And I think that's one thing to early gain respect is, okay, I see this. I mean, people may knock this fan base and do whatever you want. This fan base may be extremely passionate, and they are about football, but damn, people that follow Nebraska are very knowledgeable, okay? They know what good football looks like. And if they can see something and they go, okay, that makes sense, I can see what they're doing, man, you're headed in the right direction. So I think from the play calling, okay, complementary football, offense, defense, offense, throw in special teams, and pet plays. You might run a play in the first quarter, and it doesn't go for – it doesn't – a guy doesn't hit his head on the goalpost, but it gains yardage, and you go back to that in the fourth quarter.
Yeah. It is super important to have your bread and butter, Sharpie. We've heard it for a long time. And
also one other thing, and I know Rule of the Day has brought this up. You guys have brought this up. The team that shows up in 5 weeks, that team should look nothing like the team that shows up on Black Friday.
Right.
That team on Black Friday should look entirely different. There were too many times over the last decade plus where the team that opened up the season essentially was the same team that opened up November. And for Nebraska to make strides, that can't happen. Even the great teams, they're different from week 1 to week 12. And that's got to be the case with Nebraska moving forward.
Outside of 2012, there were a lot of whimpers to the finish line.
Yep.
For Nebraska. Once it hit mid-October, that's when I bet you if you go look at it, it's probably 80% of Nebraska's losses were mid-October or beyond.
Gary Sharp with us, Weekend Edition. Sharp, he'll get you out on this. Thanks for giving us some time today. And as always, we love having you on Saturdays, the overtime today as we kind of clump together media days, the Wager situation. What is your ideal role for Sims when it comes to this offense? We know what the quarterback needs to be able to do, but from a usage standpoint, and I'm not asking quarterback designed runs, but just overall, is it manage and then make some plays on or off script? What do you think is needed and necessary?
I think he'll throw the ball 25 times a game. I think he'll run it 8 times a game. And I don't think we can be afraid to. Why can't Jeff Sims win games? Instead of managing games and using people around him, they really like Jeff Sims. I mean, it's more than I think we're giving credence to. They like Jeff Sims a lot. So I think it's okay to say, hey, what if Jeff Sims goes out there and wins a couple of football games on his own? I think he will be a dynamic that gives you that added option that you didn't have last year because people didn't respect Casey and his wheels. I think Jeff Sims won't necessarily all the time pull it down, but I think we're going to find out right away, guys. Have they turned Jeff Sims into a better quarterback with footwork? They worked a lot in the spring on the footwork and also the mind of, you might have a strong arm, but that doesn't mean you can throw into every tight window. Throw into tight windows that you're confident with. So I want to see Jeff Sims, the quarterback, developing. But I'm not afraid to say and put it on his plate, hey, there's going to be a couple football games this year that we're going to ask the quarterback at Nebraska to win us the game. Not manage the game, but to win the game. And I think the staff feels like they've made that transition, guys, don't you? That Jeff Sims could be that guy.
There were a couple of throws in that spring game, Gary, that it just doesn't seem like Nebraska's had that dude just on the roster in a long time of, almost kind of just that sidearm flick of the wrist, hitting a dude on mid-range right in stride.
Yeah.
Right. Like not where he has to drop to his knees and catch it, but just pinpoint. He's got some tools. I know we said this about Adrian, just in terms of sheer talent, take away situational awareness and all that. Just in terms of sheer talent, you had to put Martinez up there with a Turner Gill, right? Just very physically gifted. I think you put Sims right there too, just in terms of pure athleticism, pure talent.
Yep.
Stuff you cannot teach. Stuff you cannot teach. That dude he's different.
Don't you think, Schmidt and Elijah, that Jeff Sims probably also will benefit because it doesn't appear to have an OC that's stubborn? Because it appears to be a head coach that is going to kind of keep his hands in the play calling if it gets to South Carolina level last year where it was too complicated and they had to cut it back. I think having an OC that is not stubborn and tries to ram something down your throat that you don't want to taste will benefit a guy like Sims because that happened at Georgia Tech. They were trying to make, just like last year here, they were trying to make Jeff Sims do stuff that he just wasn't capable of doing. I don't think Matt Rule, who has built up Jeff Sims, is going to put him in a position where, well, he can't do that, but we need to do that because we got to establish this. So if the offensive line is shaky, they're not going to put Jeff Sims in a position that he's going to be right there in the shaky category. Mm-hmm. That's a big case. But I think the stubbornness of an OC or just we're here to win football games will go a great ways with Sims.
An interesting tidbit, I think something else to note that might be a departure from what we saw last year and in years past, the relationship between your quarterback and your offensive coordinator. Heard stories that maybe Sims is pushing to room with Satterfield during fall camp whenever they all take down Selleck.
Dorm life,
they're trying to, Jeff Sims has been pushing to get those two in a room together for fall camp. And I think whenever you hear that, I mean, how different of a departure does that sound from what you've heard in recent years from quarterback and play call? And I'm not saying Martinez and Frost or Casey and Whipple had a bad relationship, but that's on another level to want to live with the dude in the same room for 2.5 weeks.
I got the top bunk.
Yeah. Well, I definitely know Harburg and Whipple wouldn't be living together last year.
No.
I think you're right. Gary, you kind of alluded to something earlier too about the offense and how it would be nice to have an offense that sequences plays together, that does complementary plays, which was Osborne's superpower, right? Yep. He was as good, if not better, than anybody that's ever coached at setting things up, very strategic in that way. And when you think back on like offensive identity here in the wandering last 20 years, that's really what it is. The wander years. That's what it is. Put Fred Savage on there.
That is mole.
Seriously. Bring Whitney Peppercorn. Was it Whitney Peppercorn? I can't remember her name. That might've been a different movie. Who was the cute little girl? Anyways, you look back at like identity, and like Bill Callahan, I thought kind of suffered from something pretty similar, right? Where his identity was every play, no demand is in the playbook, and that's what we're going to do. It's funny that when you think back between Callahan, Bo, Riley, Frost, out of those four, who probably had the most effective and defined offensive identity? At the time, we weren't saying it, but in comparison, I'm going Tim Beck. I'm going Tim Beck and Bo Pelini. I think they have the most defined and effective. Riley had an identity, which was we suck at running and we're just going to chuck it. Right? Like it just wasn't an effective one. But isn't that funny to think about? Because you remember with Beck at the time, it was always like, what's the identity? What's the identity? But God, in comparison, they kind of did have one.
Yeah, and I think the identity of your offense, and Bo was a defensive-minded guy that, what Tim wanted to do on offense. I think having Matt Rule and his identity, Matt Rule has won a lot of football games at different places, so I think he knows the blueprint, but his identity is a tough guy that wants to run the football. And so I think he would feel really uncomfortable running the air raid. I think that's just the case. He likes to run the football because he knows how important running the football and having success can be from your program, not only on Saturday, but what it does for you on Monday, Thursday. I agree with you, Mark. I think that's another part of this season in gaining respect is also establishing an identity so that when you look at Nebraska football, you know exactly what you're getting. I use the word hodgepodge. I think they'd like to get a point where every Saturday, hey, we're going to show up. This is what we do. You have to beat us. We're not going to try and out-fancy you. We're just going to do what we do best. And, that's something to hang your hat on. And I think that's what Rule wants to do. I think Rule wants to get an identity and then be able to recruit to it and build on it and just keep it rolling on both sides of the football.
It's Gary Sharp with us, weekend edition, Hail Varsity, as we'll gear up for camp coverage and be back at it next Saturday. Sharpie, enjoy your weekend, bud. It was good to spend time with you in Indy this past week. Thanks for everything, man.
Hey, thank you, guys. Big day today, Crawford-Spence.
Are you getting it?
Can we do a little overtime here?
Yeah,
can we do a little overtime for that, or do you got to go, Chris?
Okay, no. Chris doesn't have to go. Where's Chris going to go?
We're good.
We're good. Yeah. Are you getting it? Are you getting it? Because I don't have a spot to watch it. I could watch it at Elijah's, but Elijah's going to charge me
I'm in the same situation.
95 at the door for it.
Well, that there'll be a lot of illegal streams that'll be out there.
Elijah's like, Yes, there will be.
I know nothing of
We
the
got
sort.
the FBI listens to our stop here.
There are I'm going somewhere. There are quite a few watch parties, of course, in Omaha. I don't know if you noticed this, Schmidt, when we were getting off our plane from Minneapolis yesterday, we on the Delta flight coming out of our gate, there was a Frontier airline flight going to Vegas right next to us. It was absolutely packed. Everybody's going out there for the flight. First of all, anybody that is named Errol and spells it, not EARL and doesn't want to go with Earl should have their ass kicked. But that's a whole nother story. It's kind of interesting. Earl. This is a mega fight, and it's two of the best. I mean, it's rare that we get two of the top 5 pound-for-pound guys in the ring together, and we all love Bud, and especially here in Omaha where we get to interact with him and see him a little bit more. But these two guys, there's no beef, No. They're both going to get paid. They both have respect for each other. It's not super a bunch of animosity. Now, when that bell sounds in the ring and they're going to go for 12 rounds, it's going to be, every man for himself. But it hasn't been like the trash talking leading up to it. But this is going to be fantastic tonight. This is one of those nights that harkens back to the golden days of boxing. It's not a heavyweight fight. It's the smaller guys. But, man, do not miss this tonight. This is going to be this will be one for that sport.
One for the ages.
It's one for the legacy. It's a legacy fight. No denying it. And, man, that'd be something if Bud had all the belts. He finally got to this fight. He went through all the red tape. He hung around. And I think he wins tonight. But I also think people are not bringing up the fact Spence has almost been in as many car accidents as he's been in fights lately.
Yep.
How's his body going to hang with 12 rounds of Bud Crawford?
Well, and here's what he's known for too, Spence. The more you look at him is that he's a devastating puncher, obviously. He'll go body blows on you, and he gets on top of you and stays on top. I mean, he stalks continuously, and he can do that for 12 rounds. He doesn't run out of gas in that way. But what's interesting about Crawford, I don't know how much you want to just read into a weigh-in or whatever, but I have never seen Crawford look like he does now.
Yeah.
He has put on some size, some girth, clearly in great shape, so he'll be able to withstand that. But isn't the concern, Gary, going into this, last few fights for Crawford especially, because all his fights follow the same damn pattern for people that haven't seen him. He measures and he starts doing file save as for the first 4 rounds as he figures you out, and then he just freaking unloads on you and it's fight's over. That's what happens.
Yep.
But in those early rounds, the last few fights, I feel like his defense has gotten kind of sloppy and feel like he's gotten caught a couple times. The guy's never even been knocked down, right? Like Crawford doesn't even get knocked down. But if you get sloppy against Spence defensively in one of those early rounds, like that, isn't that the biggest concern? Like if he can withstand those first 4 and not get stung, then it's Crawford, right? But isn't that the main concern, or do you have any others?
Well, no, I think you're right, because Bud, well, and how is Bud going to go? I mean, is he going to go southpaw? Is he going to go right? The one thing about Bud is he lures you into the trap, and then the middle rounds is where he really starts to go at you.
Yeah.
And, at 147, Bud has never had an opponent make it to the final bell. He's 7-0, all TKOs, at 147. If you go back, so Spence and Ugas fought recently, and Ugas was able to hurt Spence multiple times, but he never stepped on the gas. Kind of to your point, Mark, as we go Al Bernstein here, Bud, I think, has to start quicker. I don't think he can sit back and let, and figure out Spence and wait until like the 4th, 5th, 6th round. He may have to go a little bit earlier, but I think it's going to be a great fight while it lasts. I'm taking Bud to win by TKO. He's got a plus 270 on the Vegas odds. I think this is a fight that the tactician wins out, but Spence is going to be a load. I mean, Errol Spence is a dude, but if Bud wins this, he should have in Sharpie at the top of the pound for pound, the best in boxing right now. And then we'll wait and we'll hear when the rematch is. But this will solidify. If Bud wins tonight, this will solidify him as one of the best boxers of all time.
It's legacy making.
Sorry, Chris. I get so geeked on this. Just real quick. I watched so many rabbit hole videos last night on all this. So the experts I was watching, Gary, to your question about will he go southpaw or not, is he should go southpaw, and he probably will throughout, because Spence tries to control everything with his jab, right? So if you're a left-hander, that means your right hand jab. And so setting up also as a southpaw gives you extra defense, and it takes away what Spence wants to do. So something to look for, because you're right. Most Crawford fights, he'll switch in between. He'll come out traditional, switch to southpaw third round, mid round. Yeah, see, like Gary.
Gary's me in my bathroom at 7:30 in the morning before I hop in the shower in there. Just
yeah, Gary's
Ethan Piper after a Rocky movie.
Yeah, people that are just listening don't know that Gary's going P90X, shadow boxing artist over here. It's great. That's going to be a fantastic fight. And then on top of whatever happens tonight, it's already written into the contract.
Yeah,
that the rematch is happening at the winner's weight class of choice. Spence, if he wins this, if he unifies, he's bumping up.
Which I don't like. I don't like. But they had to make. I think Bud wanted this fight so bad that he agreed to some things that he normally wouldn't do. I mean, this is Bud's legacy fight, and he's talked about it, and he's wanted it. And if you're looking at a wonder about Bud, he hasn't fought a lot. There really hasn't been guys around for him to fight. And because of being with Top Rank, he's been kind of limited. So I can't wait. This is something that we're talking about now. It seems like it doesn't get as much run, but I think when we get closer to tonight, and I think he'll be in the ring about 10:30, 10:45. I mean, this whole state is going to be watching Bud come into the ring. People are saying that, who's going to be leading him into the ring. I don't care. I just want these two guys to fight. We've been waiting this for a long time. And, we'll see if he's decked out in Nebraska gear.
Is Matt Rule front row like he was for WWE SmackDown in Lincoln?
I think because camp is tomorrow, and we got the barbecue tomorrow.
Yes.
Camp starts, guys report. It's fan day. We got the barbecue.
Fan day.
Probably he's going to hang in Lincoln.
Yeah.
Well, we'll recap plenty and get you into week one of camp. Sharpie, again, will say fare thee well, my friend, and we will let us know where you're at. You're like, no chance in hell, and we'll see you later.
Well, Elijah, find that illegal stream.
Hey, no, take care of Bud. Nebraska guy, buy the pay-per-view, the money goes to him.
Yes. Well done.
That's true, which then that money comes back to us because he puts it into the local economy. Yeah,
sure.
That's smart thinking.
Kraynak, we'll consort with Elijah and figure out what sides to bring. We'll bring a Lazari's
Gary's
pizza.
not inviting us, obviously. Gary has a hookup.
We'll bring a Lazari's Pizza. Junior's working today, so.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Make that happen.
Thanks
guys,
for not inviting us,
you.
Gary. We don't appreciate it. We don't.
Guys, take care. We'll talk
Thanks,
again.
Guys.
Godspeed, y'all.